Hi, it's Mrs. Martin, and this is your book talk for the month. When it comes to our book talks, I am going to be sharing enough with you about the book to hopefully persuade you to read this book or books by this author, but just know that some of the books might sound interesting to you while others are not going to be your style, and that is completely okay. Not every book is going to sound like a good book to you. Each book that I'm sharing today will have a slide about that book. The title and author will be on the slide along with the book cover, so you know what the book looks like on the shelf. There will be a few pictures that hint at some of the information about the story, and then the genre is going to be located in the top right corner so that when it comes to finding it in our library, you know where to go on the shelves. These are only a few of our over 18,000 books in the collection. So just know that while you may not be able to find this book right away, the copies might get checked out, or again, it may not sound like a good book to you, we have so many others that you can go to look for. So use our catalog, go online, try to search up a book that sounds good to you, come down to the library, ask for a recommendation, ask your friends. Come and look on the shelves, take a look at our displays. There are so many ways to find a good book to read. This is only meant to add to your reading list. Let's go ahead and get started. The first book I'm sharing today is The List of Things That Will Not Change by Rebecca Stead. This is in our realistic fiction section, and it's really a very short read, but it packs a powerful punch. After Bee learns that her parents are going to be divorcing, she feels like life is going to become different in many ways. She does know, though, that she can look back to the list that she has in her green notebook that her parents encouraged her to make. And that's a list of things that are not going to change in her life. At the top of that list is that her parents are always going to love her. She knows that's true. Her parents, of course, do care so much about Bee, and that's not going to change regardless of the changing of their relationship. Later, Dad tells Bee that he and his boyfriend, Jesse, are going to get married. This develops later on in the story, and Bee is thrilled. She loves Dad's boyfriend. She knows they're a good match, and she's especially excited because Jesse has a daughter that he hasn't introduced her to before. Bee has always wanted a sister, and she's just positive that even though this will be a change in her life, it's going to be a change for the better. Well, let's just say that Bee is in for a bit of a surprise, at least at first. Check out The List of Things That Will Not Change by Rebecca Stead in realistic fiction. Pax by Sarah Pennypacker is in the adventure section, and I always love sharing this book because if you are an animal lover or you like a story about friendship, you're going to enjoy this book. Pax is the fox pictured on the cover, and Pax is Peter's best friend. Peter rescued Pax when he was just a kit, and the two of them have been inseparable ever since. Unfortunately now, Peter's dad has to enlist in the war, and Peter's going to move in with his grandpa. Peter can't keep Pax at Grandpa's house. So Peter's dad has decided to drive Peter and Pax out into a forest, and he's asked Peter to throw a little army toy out into the woods, which is a game that Peter and Pax play all the time. Peter throws the toy, Pax runs to fetch it and bring it back, but this time when Peter throws the toy, Pax runs to fetch it, and when Pax turns around to bring it back to his owner, Peter and his dad have left in the car. They've left Pax in the forest alone, and Peter is sobbing in the car. It's such a sad scene, and this is how the story begins. Peter's going to go live with his grandpa, but that first night at Grandpa's house, Peter can't sleep. All he can think about is how he's separated from his best friend, and there's no way he can make it. What makes the story even better is that you get chapters also written from the perspective of Pax the fox. You get to find out how Pax, his heart is broken too, and he just wants to find Peter. So the two of them decide they're going to find one another. And this is the story of them doing so. Check out this book by Sarah Pennypacker. You will love it. If you're looking for something very fun and silly, especially for those of you that love Big Nate and Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I would recommend King of the Mole People by Paul Gilligan. It is, of course, in the humor section. Let's take a look at a quick trailer first. So this is a story about a kid named Doug who did not ask to be king. His dad makes him eel sandwiches, and he thought dealing with being in 7th grade was tricky enough, but it is nothing compared to navigating a feud between mole people, slug people, mushroom folk, and stone goons, not to mention preventing giant worms from rising up and destroying everything. Well, how is Doug going to manage to restore order? You've got to find out in this book. If you love a story with someone who doesn't really want to be in a position of power and lots of funny things going on with it, monsters who are not particularly scary but maybe think they are, try out King of the Mole People. It's really a ton of fun. Our next book, The Honest Truth by Dan Geimenhardt in realistic fiction, has a bit of a sad note to this story, especially at the beginning. Our 12-year-old main character's name is Mark, and he is running away at the beginning of this story. He's got his camera and notebook and his beloved dog, Bo, and he decides that he is headed off to Mount Rainier and is going to climb it. Mark has a reason for going on this adventure because he's been battling cancer for many years. And the cancer, while it's been in remission for a while, has now returned. Mark decides this is the last time he might have a chance to make this climb, and so he leaves behind his parents and his best friend Jesse to take on this adventure. And it absolutely is an adventure because even though Mark felt like he was prepared to take on the mountain, he most certainly does not expect all of the things that are going to go wrong on this trip. The book is told in alternating chapters. You've got not only Mark telling his point of view, but also some of the third-person accounts of all the people who are searching for him, because Mark doesn't exactly tell everyone where he's going and where he's going to be. This isn't where he's got his cell phone texting everyone at the same time. People are concerned. They're worried. And you're going to read this story and absolutely want to find out how things are going to go for Mark and for the people who care so much about him. The Honest Truth by Dan Geimenhardt, an unforgettable story. One Came Home by Amy Timberlake is a story set in Wisconsin, but as you can see, it is historical fiction. We're talking about Wisconsin back in 1871. Georgie is our main character and is known for two things. She is really good with a gun, and she sometimes, let's just say, runs her mouth off a little bit too much. She says things that she really shouldn't say. She blurts out something that she shouldn't, and as a result, her older sister Agatha runs away from home, takes off. A couple days later, the sheriff returns to town with an unidentifiable body. The body, though, is wearing Agatha's clothes. And everyone jumps to the conclusion, of course, assuming the worst, that Agatha has died. Except Georgie. While people are planning Agatha's funeral, Georgie believes this is not Agatha's body. Sure, it has Agatha's dress, but Georgie believes Agatha is out there somewhere, and she's going to set off with her rifle and track down every last clue and shred of evidence to bring Agatha home. This is an adventure story. It's got that historical piece of being back in the 1800s, and you're going to really enjoy Georgie's character because, again, she really doesn't put up with much. Take a look at One Came Home by Amy Timberlake. If you're in the mood for a good mystery, we've had so many asking for great horror and ghost stories lately. Deep, Dark, and Dangerous by Mary Downing Hahn will not disappoint. 13-year-old Allie finds an old picture in an attic of her house, and she recognizes two of the three people in the picture. Two of them are as children. It's her mom, Claire, and her Aunt Dulcie. The third person, though, has been kind of ripped out of the picture. She can see part of, the person's shoulder and part of their hair, but she can't tell who that third person is. So, of course, she does what any of us would do. She goes to her mom and asks, and her mom shuts down the question right away, is very secretive about it, doesn't answer, won't answer, tells Allie basically it's none of her business. And this makes Allie wonder more. Allie figures, well, she'll find out who is in the picture because she's going to vacation with Dulcie and her 4-year-old daughter, Emma, in the house where Allie's mom and their family used to spend the summer. Okay, she didn't get an answer from her mom. She'll just ask her aunt, who's also in this picture. Well, she doesn't really get an answer there either. And then Allie and her cousin Emma meet a girl named Sissy, this really mean, spiteful kid who just keeps hanging around. And Sissy gives them some information. Info that makes Allie think perhaps there's someone in this picture or something worth investigating. Sissy keeps talking about a girl long ago when Claire and Dulcie were kids who drowned under mysterious circumstances. Get to the bottom of this story by reading Deep and Dark and Dangerous. It's going to take you for some turns you won't expect. Last but not least, Not If I Save You First by Allie Carter is a story set at first in Washington, D.C., and then Alaska. Maddie and Logan have been best friends for a long time because Maddie's father was a Secret Service agent, and Logan's dad is President of the United States. I love that beginning. Maddie's dad, of course, is meant to guard Logan's dad. That's his whole job. They were torn apart by a kidnapping attempt, and Maddie is taken away with her dad to Alaska when there's sort of a safety breach right in the beginning of the book. Maddie heads off to Alaska with her dad. Logan stays back, of course, in Washington, D.C. with his father, since his dad is the president. And for a few years, they don't even speak to one another. During that time, Maddie really gets angry with Logan. She really feels like she should be hearing from him. She's sending him letters, trying to contact him. She's hearing nothing back. And this resentment starts to grow as she realizes maybe they didn't have as strong a friendship as she thought. Well, then one day, all of a sudden, Logan shows up in this Alaskan wilderness where she and her dad are living in the middle of nowhere. He shows up and acts like nothing's wrong. Maddie's pretty ticked off at him. Everything's going, pretty bumpy in their friendship as he's now been sent out there. And it seems as though Logan has been followed out to Alaska, and the adventure begins again. As you can see here on the cover of this book, it says, "Find the boy, save the boy, make the boy pay for what he did to you." If you enjoy a kidnapping story, if you enjoy a book with a lot of suspense, if you enjoy a book where, friends are trying to decide, are we going to stay friends? Are we going to friends or enemies kind of a thing, this would be a great book for you to pick up as well. It's called Not If I Save You First by Allie Carter, and it's in our adventure section. I hope that one of the books I shared today is a book you'd want to add to your reading list. Again, looking up these authors are terrific as well, because so many of these authors I shared have other great titles that you could take a look at in our catalog. Please use our library catalog off of your iPad to search for books in some of these genres. If you know that you like humorous books or you like mysteries, please take a look there and do some of that searching before you come down to the library to look for something great to read. Thanks so much for your attention. Happy reading.